Don't shoot her. I'm the one you want." An 11-year-old boy burst through the door, barefoot and starving, throwing himself between a loaded gun and an 8-year-old girl tied to a chair. Kevin Walsh froze. His finger trembled on the trigger. "Who the hell are you?" "Nobody. I'm nobody. But I've been watching you for 2 days, and if you kill her, I swear to God those fires I lit will bring every Hell's Angel in Pennsylvania straight to this door." Outside, 154 motorcycles were already roaring through the darkness. Ethan Carter had nothing. No phone, no weapon, no hope. Just a promise he refused to break. Subscribe now and follow this story to the end. Comment your city below. I want to see how far this journey travels. Ethan's hands were bleeding again. The aluminum cans had sharp edges, and the cold made his fingers clumsy. He'd cut himself twice already tonight, but he kept working. 20 cents here, 15 cents there. Every can brought him closer to the $47 his mother needed for antibiotics. He was $12.50 short. His mother, Sarah Carter, had been coughing for 3 weeks. The cough had turned into fever. The fever had turned into pneumonia, and pneumonia, without medicine, turned into death. Ethan knew this. He'd watched his grandmother die the same way 4 years ago. Same cough, same fever, same helpless waiting while the sickness ate her from the inside. He wasn't going to watch it happen again. "Come on," he whispered to himself, reaching for a Pepsi can wedged under a concrete block. Just a few more and Mom gets her medicine." The can slipped. His fingers closed on empty air. That's when he heard the engine. Ethan dropped flat behind a rusted barrel. His father had taught him one thing before walking out 5 years ago. When something ain't right, boy, you disappear first. Figure out what to do second. The van was black, no plates. It pulled up fast, tires crunching on gravel, and stopped at the loading dock of Building 7. The door slid open. A man stepped out, tall, ski mask, brown leather jacket. He moved like someone being chased, fast, nervous, checking over his shoulder every few seconds. Then he reached into the van and pulled out a child. Ethan stopped breathing. She was small, maybe 8 years old, blonde hair tangled and dirty, pink nightgown with butterflies on it. Her hands were bound with zip ties. Duct tape covered her mouth. But her eyes were wide open, scanning the darkness, looking for help, looking for anyone. And for 1 second, those eyes found Ethan. He didn't move, didn't breathe. But something passed between them. A silent scream, a desperate plea. "Help me." Then the man carried her inside and the door slammed shut. Ethan's heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. "Run," his brain screamed. "Run home. Tell Mom. Call 911. Let the adults handle it." But he knew what adults handling it looked like in Ridgewood. The police station was 12 miles away. Response time to this part of town? 45 minutes on a good day. By then the van would be gone. The girl would be gone. And nobody would believe a poor kid from the trailer park who claimed he saw a kidnapping behind the old steel mill. Ethan had learned a long time ago that people like him were invisible. Teachers looked through him. Store owners watched him like he was going to steal something. Even his own father had looked at him one morning, said, "I can't do this anymore," and walked out the door. Nobody came for people like Ethan. Nobody would come for that little girl either. Unless he did something. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay, think. What do you do?" He couldn't fight. He was 11 years old and 73 pounds. The man in the ski mask was twice his size and probably armed. He couldn't run for help. By the time he got anywhere, it would be too late. But he could watch. He could follow. He could learn. And maybe he could find a way. Ethan moved. 5 years of poverty had taught him how to be invisible. When you're the poor kid, the hungry kid, the kid whose clothes smell like mildew because the dryer broke 6 months ago and nobody has money to fix it, You learn to move through the world without being seen. Now that skill was going to save a life. He crept along the fence line, staying low, using the rusted machinery as cover. Building 7 was 200 yards ahead. Through the boarded windows, he could see light moving inside, a flashlight or lantern. He needed to get closer. He needed to hear what was happening. The back of the building had a broken window. Ethan knew this because he'd explored these factories dozens of times, looking for scrap metal to sell. He knew every entrance, every hiding spot, every way in and out. The window was 8 feet off the ground. Ethan found a discarded crate, stacked it against the wall, and climbed. Inside, he could hear voices. A man's voice, bitter and sharp. "You don't understand why this is happening, do you?" And then a child's voice, thin and terrified. "Uncle Kevin, please. I want my daddy." Uncle. Ethan's blood went cold. She knew him. This wasn't a stranger. This was family. "Your daddy," the man continued, "is the reason I lost everything. 10 years ago, I made one mistake. One. And Marcus, my own brother, turned his back on me, kicked me out of the club, told everyone I was a rat." The girl was crying now. Ethan could hear her sobs through the broken window. "You know what happens to rats in the Hells Angels? You get hunted. You get destroyed. You lose everything. Your family, your brothers, your whole life. I spent 8 years running, 8 years hiding, 8 years with nothing." His voice dropped lower, colder. "While Marcus built his empire, president of the Pennsylvania chapter, 3 businesses, beautiful wife, perfect daughter, everything that should have been mine." "Please," the girl whimpered. "Please, Uncle Kevin, I didn't do anything." "No, you didn't," the man's voice exploded. "But your father did, and now he's going to pay. I sent him a message 20 minutes ago. $500,000, 72 hours. That's everything the club has in their emergency fund." Ethan's hands were shaking. He pressed himself against the wall, trying to hear every word. "But here's the thing, sweetheart." The man's voice turned soft now, almost gentle, almost kind, and that made it worse. "Even if he pays, you don't go home." The girl screamed through her gag, a muffled, desperate sound. "Money won't fix what he did to me. Only his pain will. Only watching him lose what he loves most, the way I lost everything, will make this right." 72 hours. Sunday night, 7 p.m. That's when she dies. Ethan's mind was racing. He slid down from the window and pressed his back against the cold brick wall. What was he supposed to do now? The man was going to kill her. Ransom or no ransom, that little girl was going to die in 72 hours unless someone stopped it. But who? The police wouldn't believe him. They never believed kids like him. Her father, Marcus, president of the Hells Angels, didn't know where she was. The kidnapper had her hidden in a building that hadn't been used in 20 years. By the time anyone searched this deep into the factory complex, it would be too late. Ethan was the only one who knew. He was the only one who could help. "I can't do this," he whispered. "I'm just a kid. I can't." But then he thought about his mother, lying in bed with pneumonia, coughing until she couldn't breathe, waiting for medicine that might never come. He thought about his grandmother, how she'd held his hand in the hospital and told him to be brave, and then closed her eyes and never opened them again. He thought about his father, walking out the door without looking back, choosing himself over his family, taking the easy way out. And he thought about that little girl's eyes, finding his through the van window, begging for help. "I'm not like my father," Ethan told himself. "I don't run. I don't quit." He took a deep breath. "Okay, 72 hours. What do I need to do?" First, he needed information. Ethan pulled his worn notebook from his jacket pocket, the one he used to track his can collecting routes, and started writing. Black van, no plates. Man is Uncle Kevin. Kidnapper is victim's uncle. Victim's father is Marcus, president of Hells Angels Pennsylvania chapter. Ransom, $500,000. Deadline, Sunday 7 p.m. Location, Building 7, Ridgewood Steelworks. Kevin plans to kill her whether ransom is paid or not. He stared at the words. Such simple facts for such a terrible situation. Second, he needed a way to communicate with the girl. She was tied up in there, probably terrified, probably thinking no one was coming. If Ethan could let her know someone was watching, someone was trying to help, maybe that would give her strength to hold on. Third, he needed to find a way to alert her father, Marcus Walsh, president of the Hells Angels. Ethan knew about the motorcycle club. Everyone in Ridgewood did. They had a reputation, leather jackets, loud bikes, faces that made people cross the street. But Ethan knew something else about them too. Last winter, when his mother was too sick to work and there was no food in the trailer, a group of bikers had shown up at the trailer park. They'd brought boxes of groceries, coats and blankets, toys for the kids. They hadn't asked for anything in return, hadn't taken photos or made speeches. They just helped, quietly, like it was the most natural thing in the world. The man who led that group had been big, with a gray beard and a patch on his vest that said, President, Marcus Walsh, Emma's father. He helps people, Ethan thought. He helped my mom. Now I have to help his daughter. But how? The clubhouse was 6 miles away. If Ethan ran, he could make it in an hour. But that was an hour that Emma would be alone with Kevin. An hour where anything could happen. And even if he got there, would they believe him? Would they listen to a scrawny 11-year-old kid covered in dirt, claiming he'd witnessed a kidnapping? Probably not. He needed proof. He needed something that would make them take him seriously. But first, he needed to make sure Emma stayed alive long enough for him to figure this out. Ethan circled the building, looking for another way to observe. On the north side, he found a ventilation shaft that led to the basement. The grate was rusted but loose. He squeezed through. His small size, always a source of shame, always the thing that made other kids call him runt and shrimp, was finally an advantage. He dropped into darkness. The basement was a maze of old machinery and broken pipes. Ethan navigated by touch, his eyes slowly adjusting to the blackness. Above him, he could hear footsteps. Kevin was pacing, back and forth, like a caged animal. Then the sound of a phone ringing. Yeah, it's done. Kevin's voice was muffled but audible through the floorboards. I have her. No, I'm not at the cabin. Too obvious. Nobody's looked at this place in 20 years. She's fine, for now. Tell Marcus the clock is ticking. A pause. I don't care what he says. 500,000, 72 hours, no police, or she dies. Simple. Another pause, longer this time. Don't tell me to calm down, Ray. Don't you dare tell me to calm down. You have no idea what I've been through. 8 years, man. 8 years of running because my own brother stabbed me in the back. This is justice. This is what he deserves. The call ended. Ethan heard the phone hit something, thrown against the wall maybe. Then Kevin started talking again. But this time, he wasn't on the phone. He was talking to Emma. You hungry? I brought food. Water too. I'm not a monster. I'm not going to let you starve. No response from Emma. Just muffled sounds through the gag. Look at me. Look at me. A scraping sound. A chair being dragged across the floor. Your daddy thinks he's a good man. President of the club. Protector of the innocent. But he's not. He's a liar and a traitor. He destroyed his own brother to make himself look good. And now he's going to know what it feels like to lose everything. Emma was crying. Ethan could hear it. Soft, desperate sobs that cut through the floorboards like knives. Crying won't help you. Nothing will help you. In 72 hours, this ends, one way or another. Ethan found a spot directly beneath a ventilation grate. Through the slats, he could see into the room above. Emma was tied to a chair in the center of the space, Her face was streaked with tears. Her wrists were raw where the zip ties had cut into her skin. She looked so small, so fragile. Kevin sat across from her on an overturned crate, drinking from a bottle. Whiskey. Ethan could smell it through the grate. "You know," Kevin said, his words starting to slur, "you look just like your mother. Same eyes, same hair. Christina was always too good for Marcus. I told her that. Back when we were kids, I told her she was making a mistake." He took another long drink. "But she didn't listen. Nobody ever listens to me. Not my father, not my brother, not the club. Everyone just walked away." For a moment, just a moment, Ethan saw something in Kevin's face that looked like pain. Real pain. The kind that eats you from the inside when you've been alone for too long. Then it was gone, replaced by cold fury. "Well, they're going to listen now. Marcus is going to listen. And by the time this is over, he's going to wish he'd never been born." Ethan waited. For 3 hours, he lay in that basement, barely breathing, watching through the grate. Kevin drank. Kevin paced. Kevin made 2 more phone calls, both short, both angry. And finally, around 10 p.m., Kevin's head started to droop. By 10:30, he was passed out, the whiskey bottle empty beside him. Ethan moved. The basement stairs were old and rotted. He tested each step, moving slowly, placing his weight at the edges where the wood was strongest. The door at the top was open. Why would Kevin close it? He was alone in an abandoned factory in the middle of nowhere. Who would possibly find him? Ethan entered the room. Emma saw him immediately. Her eyes went huge. She started to make noise, struggling against her bonds. Ethan put a finger to his lips. "Shh, I'm here to help, but you have to be quiet." He crept forward, staying behind her chair so Kevin wouldn't see him if he woke. Up close, Ethan could see how young she was, how scared, how tired. "My name's Ethan," he whispered. "I saw him take you. I followed you here." Emma's eyes were locked on his face, searching, desperate. "I can't get you out right now. He'll wake up. But I'm going to get help, I promise you. I'm going to find a way to save you." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But I'm not going to leave you. Do you understand? I'm going to stay close. I'm going to watch. And I'm going to figure this out." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the only food he had, half a granola bar he'd been saving for breakfast. "Can you eat if I take the gag off? Just for a second?" Emma nodded frantically. Ethan peeled back the duct tape as gently as he could. Emma gasped, pulling in air, but she didn't scream. She understood. He fed her the granola bar in small bites. She ate like she was starving. "What's your name?" he whispered. "Emma. Emma Walsh." "How old are you?" 8. 8 years old, tied to a chair, waiting to die. Ethan felt something harden inside him. Something that had been soft and scared, turning to steel. "I'm 11, he said, "and I'm going to get you out of here." "How?" Emma's voice cracked. He said he's going to kill me no matter what." "I know, I heard him." "Then how?" "I don't know yet." Ethan's voice was steady, calm. He didn't feel calm, but Emma needed him to be. "But I'm going to figure it out. I just need you to hold on. Can you do that? Can you be brave for a little while longer?" Emma stared at him. This dirty, skinny kid with cuts on his hands and holes in his shoes. This nobody who had somehow found her in the darkness. "Are you real?" she whispered. "Yeah, I'm real." "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." Ethan thought about that. Why was he helping her? He could walk away right now, go home, pretend he never saw anything, let the adults figure it out. But then he remembered something his grandmother had told him before she died. She said, "Ethan, the world is full of people who look away, who say it's not their problem, who wait for someone else to do something. Don't be one of those people. Don't ever be one of those people." He looked at Emma. My grandma told me that, right before she died, and I made her a promise. I told her I'd try to be good. I'd try to help when I could. He replaced the gag gently, pressing the tape back into place. This is me keeping that promise. Ethan slipped back into the basement just as Kevin stirred. What? What time is it? He heard Kevin stumble to his feet, check on Emma, curse under his breath, and then settle back onto the crate. 69 hours left, sweetheart. Better hope your daddy loves you as much as he says. Ethan curled up in the darkness of the basement, surrounded by the smell of rust and mold and decay. He had 69 hours to save Emma Walsh's life. No phone, no weapon, no one who would believe him, just himself. A poor kid from a broken trailer who had never done anything extraordinary in his life. But then again, nobody had ever given him the chance. Until now. Saturday morning came slow and gray. Ethan had slept maybe 2 hours total, curled up behind a rusted boiler in the basement. Every sound had jerked him awake. Kevin's footsteps, Emma's muffled cries, the rats scurrying through the walls. But now it was daylight, and he had work to do. First, he needed to find out more about Marcus Walsh and the Hells Angels. Where they gathered, when they rode, how to reach them. Second, he needed to come up with a signal, something that would get their attention, something they couldn't ignore. And third, he needed to make sure Emma stayed alive long enough for his plan to work, whatever that plan was. Ethan climbed out of the basement through the ventilation shaft and made his way to the perimeter of the factory complex. From here, he could see the road, the main highway that connected Ridgewood to the rest of Pennsylvania. He watched for an hour. Trucks passed, cars passed, but no motorcycles. Then he remembered. Saturday night. Every Saturday night, the Hells Angels did what they called the Iron Run, a convoy of bikes rolling through Ridgewood's main streets. Ethan had seen it dozens of times. 50, 60, sometimes 100 motorcycles roaring past, engines shaking the windows, leather and chrome flashing in the streetlights. The Iron Run passed within half a mile of the steelworks. If Ethan could create a signal big enough, visible enough, urgent enough, maybe they would see it. Maybe they would investigate. But what kind of signal? He looked around. Abandoned factories, rusted machinery, old storage tanks, and then it hit him. Fire. His grandfather had told him once, back when the old man was still alive. In the old days, before phones, before everything, people signaled for help with fire. 3 fires in a triangle means distress. Anyone who sees it knows someone's in trouble. 3 fires. Building 6 was 200 yards from Building 7, far enough that a fire wouldn't endanger Emma, but close enough that Ethan could maintain contact with her. The roof of Building 6 was visible from the highway. If Ethan could light 3 fires on that roof at exactly the right moment, when the Iron Run was passing, the bikers would see it. They'd have to investigate, and when they did, Ethan would lead them to Emma. It was crazy. It was desperate. It probably wouldn't work, but it was all he had. The rest of Saturday was spent preparing. Ethan scavenged the factory complex for flammable materials, dry wood from collapsed structures, old newspapers from an abandoned office, paint thinner, and motor oil from storage rooms. He carried it all to the roof of Building 6, pile by pile, making sure Kevin never saw him. Between trips, he snuck back to check on Emma. The second time, Kevin was awake, pacing, talking on the phone. I don't care if he's stalling. The deadline doesn't change. 72 hours means 72 hours. The third time, Kevin had left to get food. Ethan used the opportunity to bring Emma water, rusty and metallic from the old pipes, but drinkable. I have a plan, he whispered as she drank. Tonight, there's going to be a signal. Help is coming. What if it doesn't work? It'll work. But what if? It will work, Emma. He gripped her hand. I promised I wouldn't leave you, and I'm not going to. No matter what happens, you're getting out of here. She looked at him with those big, scared eyes. 8 years old and facing death, putting her hope in an 11-year-old stranger she'd met 12 hours ago. "Okay," she said softly. "I trust you." Those 3 words hit Ethan harder than anything else in his life. She trusted him. This little girl, who had every reason to give up, had chosen to believe in him. He couldn't fail her. He wouldn't fail her. By 6 p.m. Saturday, everything was ready. 3 piles of combustible material arranged in a triangle on the roof of Building 6. Matches from an old emergency kit Ethan had found in one of the storage rooms. A piece of sheet metal polished to a mirror shine, ready to reflect light. The iron run would pass at 7 p.m. Ethan had 1 hour to wait. He spent it in the basement beneath Building 7, listening. Kevin was drinking again, talking to himself more than to Emma. 60 hours left. 60 hours and then it's over. Then Marcus finally understands what he did to me. Then the great president of the Hells Angels learns what real loss feels like. A long pause. "You know what the worst part is, sweetheart? I don't hate you. I really don't. You're just a kid. None of this is your fault. But life isn't fair. I learned that a long time ago. And now your daddy's going to learn it too." Emma didn't respond, couldn't respond through the gag. But Ethan heard something in Kevin's voice, something that sounded almost like regret. He's not a monster, Ethan realized. He's a broken person who's doing monstrous things. It didn't excuse anything. It didn't change what Ethan had to do, but it made Kevin human. And humans could be predicted. Humans could be outsmarted. Ethan just had to be smarter than a broken man with nothing left to lose. 6:45 p.m. Ethan climbed to the roof of Building 6. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and red. In the distance, he could hear traffic on the highway. Normal people living normal lives, completely unaware that half a mile away, a little girl was tied to a chair, waiting to die. 6:50 p.m. Ethan positioned himself next to the first pile. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding so hard he could barely breathe. This was it. Everything depended on the next few minutes. 6:55 p.m. He heard it. A low rumble, growing louder, growing closer. The iron run. 6:57 p.m. Ethan lit the first match. The flame caught immediately, dry wood and old newspapers igniting in a whoosh of heat and light. He ran to the second pile, lit it, then the third. 3 fires burning in a triangle against the darkening sky. 6:58 p.m. Ethan grabbed the sheet metal and started flashing. Short, long, short, the only Morse code he knew. SOS, save our souls. On the highway below, Marcus Walsh was riding at the head of the convoy. 154 Hells Angels stretched out behind him. The largest iron run in 3 years, organized as a show of strength after a rival club had tried to move into their territory. But Marcus wasn't thinking about territory. He was thinking about Emma. The ransom demand had come 24 hours ago. $500,000. 72 hours. No police. The club had gathered the money, every penny of their emergency fund. Marcus was ready to pay, ready to do anything to get his daughter back. But something felt wrong. The kidnapper knew too much, knew about the fund, knew Marcus's schedule, knew exactly when Emma would be home alone. This was someone close, someone who knew the club from the inside. Who? Marcus kept asking himself. Who would do this? And then, Marcus! Razor, his sergeant-at-arms, was pointing. Look! Marcus looked. 3 fires, burning in a triangle, on the roof of the old steel mill, and something flashing, metal catching the moonlight. SOS. That's not a campfire, Razor said. That's a signal. Marcus's blood went cold. The steel mill was less than a mile from his house, less than a mile from where Emma had been taken. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe. Everyone follow me, Marcus roared. Now! The convoy turned. 154 motorcycles peeling off the highway, engines screaming, heading toward the flames, toward the boy who stood on the roof, waving his arms, praying that someone, anyone, would see him. They saw him. And in Building 7, Kevin Walsh heard the bikes. Kevin's hand froze on the whiskey bottle. The rumble grew louder, closer. Not one bike, not 10, dozens, maybe more. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no, that's not possible." He stumbled to the window and peered through the cracks in the boards. Headlights, everywhere, pouring into the factory complex like a flood of fire. "How?" Kevin spun toward Emma. His face was twisted with rage and fear. "How did they find me? Who told them?" Emma shook her head frantically, tears streaming down her face. She didn't know. She couldn't know. But Kevin wasn't listening. He grabbed the gun from his waistband and pressed it against her temple. "If I'm going down, you're coming with me. You understand? Marcus doesn't get to win. Not this time. Not ever." Emma screamed through her gag, a muffled, desperate sound that echoed through the empty building. Outside, the bikes were getting closer. And somewhere in the darkness between Building 6 and Building 7, Ethan Carter was running faster than he'd ever run in his life. He had to reach them first, had to tell them where Emma was, had to make them understand before Kevin did something that couldn't be undone. His lungs burned, his legs screamed, but he kept running, because 60 feet away, a man with nothing left to lose had a gun to an 8-year-old girl's head, and time had just run out. Marcus Walsh killed his engine at the entrance to the factory complex. Behind him, 153 other bikes went silent. The sudden quiet was almost worse than the noise. "Spread out," Marcus ordered. "Search every building. She's here somewhere. I can feel it." "Prez," Razor grabbed his arm. "Look." A figure was running toward them, small, skinny, moving like his life depended on it. A kid. Marcus squinted through the darkness. The boy couldn't have been more than 11 or 12. He was covered in dirt, his clothes were torn, and he was waving his arms like a madman. "Wait," the boy shouted. "Wait, I know where she is." Marcus was off his bike in a second. He crossed the distance in 5 strides and grabbed the kid by the shoulders. "Who are you? How do you know about my daughter?" The boy was gasping for breath, barely able to speak. "Building 7. She's in Building 7. Your brother has her. He's got a gun." Marcus felt the world tilt beneath his feet. "My brother? Kevin. Kevin Walsh. He's going to kill her whether you pay or not. He told her. I heard him. He said money won't fix what you did to him." Marcus's grip tightened on the boy's shoulders. "How do you know this?" "I saw him take her. Friday night, I followed him. I've been watching for 2 days." "2 days? You've been here for 2 days?" "She needed help. Nobody else was coming." Marcus stared at this kid. This scrawny, filthy, half-starved kid who had tracked a kidnapper through an abandoned factory complex for 2 days, who had stayed when any sane person would have run. "What's your name?" "Ethan. Ethan Carter." "Ethan," Marcus's voice cracked. "Where exactly in Building 7? "Main floor, center of the room. She's tied to a chair. He's been drinking, but he heard the bikes. He's panicking. He put the gun to her head right before I ran out here." Marcus turned to Razor. "Get 20 men around the back, 20 more on each side. Nobody moves until I give the signal." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to talk to my brother." Razor grabbed his arm. "Marcus, if he's got a gun to her head, then I need to make sure he doesn't pull the trigger." Marcus looked at Ethan. "You stay here. You've done enough." Ethan shook his head. "No, kid, I'm not asking. I promised her. I promised I wouldn't leave her. I'm not breaking that promise now." Something flickered in Marcus's eyes. Respect, maybe, or recognition. "Fine, but you stay behind me. And if I tell you to run, you run. Understood?" Ethan nodded. Marcus turned toward Building 7 and started walking. The door was hanging open. Light flickered inside. The kerosene lantern Kevin had lit 2 nights ago, still burning. Marcus stopped at the threshold. Kevin, silence. Kevin, I know you're in there. I know you have Emma. Let's talk about this. Still nothing. Marcus took a breath and stepped inside. Kevin was standing in the center of the room, exactly where Ethan had said. Emma was in front of him, still tied to the chair, the gun pressed against her temple. She saw Marcus, and her eyes went wide. Daddy! It's okay, baby, it's okay, I'm here. Don't come any closer. Kevin's voice was raw, ragged. I'll do it, Marcus, I swear to God I'll do it. Marcus stopped, raised his hands. I'm not moving, see? I'm not moving. How did you find me? Who told you? Marcus didn't answer, didn't look at Ethan, who had slipped in behind him and was pressed against the wall near the door. It doesn't matter how I found you, Kevin. What matters is that we can end this. Right now, nobody has to get hurt. Kevin laughed, a broken, bitter sound. End this? End this? You ended everything 10 years ago, Marcus, when you destroyed me, when you took everything I had. I didn't destroy you. You destroyed yourself. Lies! Kevin's hand shook. The gun wavered against Emma's head. I made one mistake, one, and you used it to get me kicked out of the club, to turn Dad against me, to steal my whole life. You were selling club secrets to the Diablos, Kevin. You were feeding them information about our runs, our businesses, our families. Brothers got hurt because of you. Tommy Reeves almost died. I needed money. I was in debt. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. You could have come to me. You could have asked for help. Instead, you betrayed everyone who loved you. Kevin's face twisted. You never loved me. Dad never loved me. I was always second, always in your shadow. The screw-up, the disappointment. That's not true. It is true, Kevin screamed. And you know what? I'm done being nothing. I'm done being invisible. After tonight, everyone will know my name. Everyone will remember what Kevin Walsh did to the great Marcus Walsh. He pressed the gun harder against Emma's temple. She whimpered. Kevin, please. Marcus's voice broke. All the strength, all the authority, gone. He was just a father watching his daughter face death. Please, she's 8 years old. She's never done anything to you. If you want to hurt me, hurt me. Let her go and take me instead. You think I won't? I think somewhere inside you there's still my brother. The kid who taught me to ride a bike. The kid who stayed up all night with me when Mom was dying. The kid who used to say we'd always have each other's backs. Kevin's hand trembled. That kid is still in there, Kevin. I know he is. Because that kid would never hurt a child. That kid would never destroy an innocent life to get revenge. That kid is dead. But Kevin's voice cracked. You killed him when you threw me away. I didn't throw you away. I had to protect the club. I had to protect the brothers. But I never stopped loving you, Kevin. I never stopped hoping you'd come back. Tears were streaming down Kevin's face now. The gun wavered, dropped an inch. You're lying. I'm not. I looked for you, Kevin, for years. I hired private investigators. I followed every lead. I never gave up on finding you. Then why didn't you? Because you didn't want to be found. You were running, hiding, and every time I got close, you disappeared again. Kevin's whole body was shaking now. The gun dropped another inch. Emma was sobbing, her small body trembling with terror. I didn't want to do this. Kevin's voice was barely a whisper. I just wanted you to feel what I felt. I wanted you to know what it's like to lose everything. I know what it's like, Kevin. I lost my brother. That's worse than money. That's worse than anything. The gun dropped to Kevin's side. Marcus moved. He crossed the distance in 3 strides, grabbing Kevin's wrist and wrenching the gun away. Kevin didn't resist. He collapsed to his knees, sobbing like a child. I'm sorry, he choked out. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Marcus didn't answer. He was already cutting Emma's bonds, ripping away the gag, pulling her into his arms. Daddy, Daddy, I was so scared. I know, baby, I know. But it's over now. You're safe. You're safe. Emma clung to him, her small fingers digging into his leather vest like she would never let go. And then she said something that made Marcus freeze. Daddy, the boy. The boy saved me. Marcus looked up. Ethan was still standing by the door, silent, watching. His face was unreadable, but his eyes were filled with something that looked like relief. That's him, Emma said, pointing. That's Ethan. He found me. He brought me food and water. He promised he wouldn't leave me, and he didn't. Marcus gently set Emma down and walked toward Ethan. The boy didn't back away, didn't flinch. You stayed with her for 2 days? Yes, sir. You gave her food when you had nothing? She was hungry. You lit those fires to signal us. It was the only way. Marcus stared at him for a long moment. This skinny, dirty 11-year-old kid who had done what most adults couldn't. Why? Ethan met his gaze. Because she needed help, and nobody else was coming. Marcus felt something break inside him, something that had been frozen for years. He pulled Ethan into a hug. The boy stiffened at first, like he wasn't used to being touched, wasn't used to being held. Then slowly, he relaxed. His arms came up and wrapped around Marcus's back. Thank you, Marcus whispered. Thank you for saving my daughter. Ethan didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Behind them, Razor and the other bikers were streaming into the building. They stopped when they saw the scene. Marcus hugging a child, Kevin sobbing on the floor, Emma safe and free. What do we do with him? Razor asked, pointing at Kevin. Marcus looked at his brother, the man who had terrorized his daughter, the man who had planned to kill her, the man who was still, despite everything, family. Call the police. Let them handle it. Marcus. He's my brother, Razor. I'm not going to execute him. That's not who we are. He paused. And that's not what my daughter needs to see. Razor nodded slowly. Okay, Prez. Your call. Kevin looked up at Marcus. You're letting me live? I'm letting the law deal with you. What happens after that is between you and God. Why, after everything I did? Because I'm not like you, Kevin. I don't destroy my family, even when they deserve it. Kevin's face crumpled. He didn't say anything else. There was nothing left to say. The police arrived 20 minutes later, then the ambulances, then the media. The story spread like wildfire. Kidnapping foiled by 11-year-old boy. Hell's Angels rescue president's daughter. Hero child tracked kidnapper for 72 hours. But Ethan didn't care about the headlines. He didn't care about the cameras or the reporters shouting questions. He only cared about one thing. Emma was sitting in the back of an ambulance, wrapped in a shock blanket, when Ethan finally found her. A paramedic was checking her vitals. Her mother, Christina, was holding her hand, crying softly. Ethan stopped a few feet away. Suddenly, he felt out of place. These were Emma's people, her family. He was just a kid from the trailer park who had stumbled into something bigger than himself. But then Emma looked up and saw him. Ethan! She scrambled out of the ambulance and ran toward him. Before he could react, she threw her arms around him and held on tight. You came back, she whispered. You promised, and you came back. I told you I would. I know, but... She pulled back and looked at him with those big, serious eyes. People break promises all the time. My uncle promised he loved me and he was going to kill me. But you kept yours. Ethan didn't know what to say. He'd never been good with words. That's what you're supposed to do. You make a promise, you keep it. Emma smiled, the first real smile he'd seen on her face since Friday night. You're my hero, Ethan. You know that? I'm not a hero. I'm just a kid. You're my hero, Emma insisted, and nobody can tell me different. Christina Walsh had been watching the exchange. Now she stepped forward and knelt in front of Ethan. "You're Ethan Carter?" "Yes, ma'am." "The boy who saved my daughter's life?" I guess so." Christina pulled him into a hug. It was gentler than Marcus's, softer, warmer, but it carried the same weight. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Ethan stood there, surrounded by people crying and thanking him, and felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Wanted. For the first time in his life, he felt like he mattered. The police took statements for 3 hours. They asked Ethan the same questions over and over. "How did you see the kidnapping? Why didn't you call 911? How did you survive for 2 days without food?" Ethan answered every question patiently. He told them about the signal fires, about the ventilation shaft, about the granola bar he'd shared with Emma. But he didn't tell them everything. He didn't tell them about his mother, sick with pneumonia, waiting for medicine he still hadn't bought. He didn't tell them about the cans he'd been collecting, the $47 he still needed. He didn't tell them that while everyone was calling him a hero, his mom was probably getting worse by the hour. Because none of that mattered right now. What mattered was that Emma was safe. The rest, Ethan would figure out later. He always did. It was almost 3 a.m. when Marcus found him again. Ethan was sitting alone on an overturned crate outside Building 7, watching the police tape flutter in the wind. He was exhausted, bone-deep tired in a way he'd never experienced before. But he couldn't sleep. Not yet. Marcus sat down beside him. "You should be at the hospital getting checked out." "I'm fine." "Kid, you haven't eaten in 2 days. You've been sleeping in a basement. You're not fine." Ethan shrugged. "I've had worse." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Tell me about your family." Ethan tensed. "Why?" "Because you're 11 years old and you just did something that most grown men couldn't do. I want to know what kind of home produces a kid like you." Ethan stared at the ground. "There's nothing to tell. My dad left when I was 6. My mom's sick. I do what I can to help." "What about school? Friends?" "I go to school, don't have many friends." "Why not?" Ethan looked up at him. "Have you ever been the poor kid? The one with holes in his shoes and patches on his clothes? The one who smells like mildew because the dryer's been broken for 6 months?" Marcus didn't answer. "Kids like me don't have friends. We have people who tolerate us. We have teachers who look through us. We have classmates who make fun of us when they bother to notice us at all." He looked back at the ground. "I'm invisible, Mr. Walsh. I have been my whole life. That's why I was able to follow your brother for 2 days without getting caught. Being invisible is the only skill I have." Marcus sat with that for a long moment. "You're not invisible anymore, Ethan. After tonight, everyone's going to know your name." "Yeah," Ethan's voice was flat. "And then they'll forget. That's how it works. Someone does something good, everyone claps for a week, then they move on. Nothing actually changes." "What if it could?" Ethan looked at him. "What if I told you that you don't have to go back to being invisible? What if I told you that everything that happened tonight just earned you a family?" "I don't understand." Marcus leaned forward. "You saved my daughter's life. Do you know what that means to me? To my club? It means you say thank you and move on." "No," Marcus shook his head. "It means you're one of us now. Not a member, you're too young for that, but family. You're under our protection. Anything you need, we provide. Forever." Ethan stared at him. "You don't even know me." "I know enough. I know you stayed when you could have run. I know you kept a promise when breaking it would have been easier. I know you gave away your only food to a little girl you'd never met." Marcus put a hand on his shoulder. "That tells me more about your character than 100 interviews ever could." Ethan's eyes were burning. He blinked rapidly, trying to hold back tears. "My mom," he finally said, "she's sick. Pneumonia. She needs medicine, but we can't afford it. I was collecting cans to buy her antibiotics when I saw Kevin take Emma. Where is she? Our trailer. 2847 Millbrook Road, Lot 19. Marcus pulled out his phone and made a call. Razor, send someone to 2847 Millbrook Road, Lot 19. There's a woman there with pneumonia. Get her to a hospital. Pay for everything. I don't care what it costs. He hung up. Ethan was crying now, silent tears streaming down his dirty face. You didn't have to do that. Yeah, I did. Marcus squeezed his shoulder. You saved my family, kid. Now let me save yours. For the first time in years, Ethan Carter let himself hope. Maybe the world wasn't as cold as he'd always thought. Maybe there were people out there who actually kept their promises. Maybe he wasn't invisible, after all. The sun was starting to rise over the factory complex, painting the sky pink and gold. A new day was beginning, and for Ethan Carter, it felt like the start of a whole new life. The hospital was chaos when they arrived. Razor had moved fast. By the time Marcus pulled his bike into the emergency entrance at Memorial General, Sarah Carter was already being wheeled through the double doors on a stretcher. She was pale, shaking, struggling to breathe. Ethan jumped off the back of Marcus's bike before it fully stopped and ran toward her. Mom! Mom! Sarah's eyes fluttered open. Ethan, baby, what's happening? These men came to the trailer and they said you were a hero. What did you do? It doesn't matter, Mom. Just rest. They're going to help you. I don't understand. Who's paying for this? We can't afford. I am. Marcus stepped forward. Mrs. Carter, my name is Marcus Walsh. Your son saved my daughter's life. The least I can do is make sure you get the care you need. Sarah looked from Marcus to Ethan, confusion and fear mixing on her face. Saved your... Ethan, what is he talking about? I'll explain everything later, Mom. Right now you need to let the doctors help you. The nurses were already pushing the stretcher toward the treatment area. Sarah reached out and grabbed Ethan's hand. Don't leave me. Ethan's throat tightened. Those were the same words Emma had whispered to him 2 days ago. I'm not going anywhere, Mom. I promise. He held her hand until the nurses pulled the stretcher through the doors marked Authorized Personnel Only. Then he stood there, watching the doors swing shut, feeling more exhausted than he'd ever felt in his life. Marcus put a hand on his shoulder. She's going to be okay. The doctors here are the best. How do you know? Because I'm going to make sure of it. Ethan turned to look at him. Why are you doing all this? You don't owe me anything. I owe you everything. Marcus's voice was rough. You gave me back my daughter. There's no price on that. No amount of money that could ever repay what you did. I didn't do it for money. I know. That's exactly why you deserve it. 3 hours later, the doctor came out with news. Sarah Carter had severe pneumonia, complicated by bronchitis and early-stage malnutrition. She'd been sick for weeks, maybe months, pushing herself past the point of collapse because she couldn't afford to stop working. Another few days without treatment, and we'd be having a very different conversation, the doctor said. She's lucky someone brought her in when they did. Will she recover? Ethan asked. With proper rest and medication, yes, but she's going to need at least 2 weeks in the hospital, followed by several weeks of recovery at home. No working, no stress, just rest. 2 weeks in the hospital, several weeks at home, no working. Ethan did the math in his head. Rent was due in 5 days, utilities, food. Even with the medical bills covered, there was no way they could survive that long without income. Marcus must have seen the calculation happening behind Ethan's eyes. Stop, he said. Stop what? Stop trying to figure out how you're going to pay for everything. I already told you, you're family now. That means your problems are our problems. Mr. Walsh. Marcus. Marcus, I appreciate what you're doing, but I can't just take your money. I'm not a charity case. Marcus laughed. It wasn't a mocking laugh, more like the sound someone makes when a kid says something unexpectedly wise. You're 11 years old and you're worried about being a charity case. Kid, you've got more pride than most grown men I know. Pride is all I've got. Not anymore. Marcus knelt down so he was eye level with Ethan. Listen to me. What you did for Emma, that wasn't charity. That was courage. That was sacrifice. That was the kind of thing that most people never do in their entire lives. He put both hands on Ethan's shoulders. I'm not giving you charity. I'm giving you what you've earned. You saved my daughter's life. You tracked a kidnapper for 2 days with no food, no sleep, no help. You kept a promise when breaking it would have been easier. His grip tightened. So when I say that your rent is paid, and your utilities are covered, and your mother is going to get the best care money can buy, that's not charity. That's justice. That's me giving you what the world should have given you a long time ago. Ethan's eyes were burning again. He blinked hard, trying to hold it back. I don't know how to do this, he whispered. Do what? Accept help. Let people take care of me. I've been taking care of my mom since I was 7. I've been the one who finds food when there's no money. I've been the one who keeps the lights on, who deals with the landlord, who figures out how to survive. His voice cracked. I don't know how to just stop. I don't know how to let someone else carry the weight. Marcus pulled him into a hug. Then let me teach you. That's what family does. The word hit Ethan like a physical blow. Family. He'd had a family once. Before his dad left. Before everything fell apart. He remembered what it felt like to have someone else worry about the bills. Someone else make the decisions. Someone else carry the weight. He'd forgotten how much he missed it. Okay, he said softly. Okay. Marcus held him for a long moment. Then he pulled back and smiled. Now let's go see your mom. Sarah was awake when they entered her room. She looked better already, color returning to her cheeks, breathing easier now that the oxygen was flowing. But when she saw Ethan, her face crumpled. Baby, come here. Ethan crossed to her bedside and took her hand. How are you feeling? Better. The doctors gave me something for the cough. She squeezed his fingers. Ethan, these men, the ones who brought me here, they told me what you did. About the little girl. About the kidnapping. Mom, you could have died. Her voice broke. You could have been killed, and I never would have known. I would have been lying in that trailer, too sick to move, while my son was out there risking his life for a stranger. She wasn't a stranger, Mom. She was a little girl who needed help. And what about you? Who was supposed to help you? Ethan didn't have an answer for that. Sarah turned to Marcus, who was standing near the door. Mr. Walsh, I want to thank you for everything you're doing for us, but I need you to understand something. What's that, ma'am? My son is all I have. He's the only good thing in my life, and if anything had happened to him, she choked up, unable to finish. Marcus stepped forward. Mrs. Carter, I understand. I'm a parent too. The thought of losing my daughter, of never seeing her again, it's the worst thing I can imagine. He sat down in the chair beside her bed. Your son saved Emma. He tracked her kidnapper for 2 days. He kept her alive when no one else could have. And he did it without any expectation of reward or recognition. He did it because it was right. Sarah looked at Ethan. Her eyes were filled with a mixture of pride and fear and love. That's my boy, she whispered, always trying to save everyone but himself. Maybe now it's time someone saved him, Marcus said, if you'll let me. Sarah studied his face for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Take care of him, please. I will, I promise. The media descended like vultures. By noon, there were news vans parked outside the hospital. Reporters were shoving microphones in everyone's faces, demanding interviews, hunting for any scrap of information about the 11-year-old hero who had saved the Hells Angels president's daughter. Marcus tried to shield Ethan from the worst of it, but there was only so much he could do. The story was too good, too dramatic, too perfect for the 24-hour news cycle. Poor boy saves biker's daughter. Trailer park hero outwits kidnapper. 11-year-old tracks criminal for 72 hours. The headlines wrote themselves, and everyone wanted a piece of Ethan Carter. Just one interview, the CNN producer begged. 5 minutes, that's all we need. No, Marcus said. Mr. Walsh, with all due respect, this story is going viral, whether you cooperate or not. Wouldn't you rather control the narrative? I said no. The boy's mother could use the money. We'd be willing to pay. Marcus stepped into the producer's space. Listen to me very carefully. That boy has been through more in the last 3 days than most people experience in a lifetime. He's exhausted, he's traumatized, and he's 11 years old. His voice dropped to a growl. If I see one camera, one microphone, one reporter anywhere near him before he's ready, I will personally make sure that every Hell's Angels chapter from here to California knows your name and your face. Do we understand each other? The producer went pale. Yes, we understand. Good, now get out of my hospital. But the attention couldn't be stopped completely. Ethan's picture was everywhere. His school photo, the one where he was wearing a shirt 2 sizes too big and hadn't smiled because he was embarrassed about his teeth, was plastered across every news website in the country. Face of a hero, the captions read. Kids from his school started posting about him on social media. I sat next to that kid in math class. He never talked to anyone. I always thought he was weird. Guess he was just brave. Can't believe the poor kid from the trailer park saved someone's life. Some of the posts were nice, most were not. People analyzed everything about him. His clothes, his grades, his family situation. Someone found out about his father abandoning them and turned it into a whole story about the deadbeat dad who left a hero behind. Ethan saw one of the posts and felt sick. They're talking about my dad like they know him, like they know anything about us. Marcus was sitting beside him in the hospital cafeteria. That's what the media does. They take real people and turn them into stories. They don't care about the truth, they care about what sells. How do I make them stop? You can't, but you can choose how you respond. You can choose what parts of yourself you share and what parts you keep private. What would you do? Marcus thought about it. I'd give them one interview. One. Controlled on my terms. I'd tell my story the way I want it told. And then I'd go silent. Let them talk all they want. Once you've said your piece, you don't owe them anything else. Ethan nodded slowly. One interview. When you're ready, not before. What if I'm never ready? Then you never do it. Your life, your choice. It was the first time in Ethan's memory that anyone had treated his choices like they mattered. Emma came to visit that afternoon. Christina drove her to the hospital, and the two of them found Ethan sitting by his mother's bed, reading aloud from a tattered paperback book he'd found in the hospital gift shop. Ethan! He looked up just in time to see Emma running toward him. She threw her arms around his neck and held on tight. I've been asking to see you all day, she said. Mom kept saying you needed rest, but I couldn't wait anymore. It's okay. I'm glad you came. Emma pulled back and looked at him with those big, serious eyes. Are you okay? Really? I'm fine. You look tired. I am tired. Then you should sleep. Ethan smiled. It felt strange on his face, like a muscle he hadn't used in a while. I'll sleep later. Right now I want to make sure my mom's okay. Emma looked at Sarah, who was watching them with a soft expression. Is that your mom? Yeah. She's pretty. Sarah laughed weakly. You must be Emma. Your dad has been telling me about you. He has? He says you're the bravest little girl he's ever known. Emma's cheeks turned pink. I wasn't brave. I was scared the whole time. Ethan was the brave one. Being scared and doing the right thing anyway. That's what brave means. Emma considered this. Then she climbed up onto the bed beside Sarah, careful not to jostle any of the tubes or wires. Can I tell you something about your son? Sarah's eyes widened, but she nodded. When I was in that room, tied to that chair, I thought I was going to die. Uncle Kevin kept saying terrible things. He said nobody was coming for me. He said my daddy didn't love me enough to save me. He said I was going to disappear and nobody would ever find me. Her voice was steady, but Ethan could see her hands trembling. And then Ethan came. In the middle of the night, he came down through the ceiling like a ghost, and he gave me food, and he told me he wasn't going to leave me. She looked at Ethan. And he didn't. He stayed for 2 days. He snuck me water and told me stories and made sure I never felt alone. Even when I was scared, even when I thought it was hopeless, he was there. Tears were streaming down Sarah's face now. Your son saved my life, Mrs. Carter, but more than that, he saved my hope. He made me believe that good people still exist, that someone would come for me even when it looked impossible. She took Sarah's hand. You raised a hero. I just wanted you to know that. Sarah couldn't speak. She just pulled Emma into a hug and held her, crying softly. Ethan watched them. 2 people he barely knew, connected forever by something he had done. He still didn't feel like a hero. He still felt like a kid who had done what anyone should have done. But maybe that was okay. Maybe heroes weren't the people who felt brave. Maybe they were just the people who showed up. The call came at 6 p.m. Marcus was in the hallway, talking on his phone, his face getting darker with every second. When? How bad? No, don't do anything until I get there. I'm on my way. He hung up and turned to Ethan. I have to go. What happened? Club business. There's a situation at the clubhouse. He hesitated. Some of the brothers aren't happy about how I handled Kevin. What do you mean? They think I should have killed him. They think letting him live was weakness. Ethan's stomach dropped. Are they going to hurt you? No, but there might be a challenge. Someone questioning my leadership. Marcus put a hand on Ethan's shoulder. I'll be back in a few hours. Razor's going to stay here with you and your mom. You'll be safe. I'm not worried about being safe. I'm worried about you. Marcus smiled. Don't be. I've been handling club politics since before you were born. This is just noise. But, Ethan, Marcus knelt down, I need you to do something for me. What? I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Ethan looked at this man, this stranger who had become something more in the space of a few hours. Yes. Good. I'll be back before midnight, and when I get back, we're going to talk about your future. My future? Your education, your housing, your mother's care, everything. Marcus stood. You saved my daughter. Now it's time I return the favor. He walked away, leather boots echoing on the hospital floor. Ethan watched him go and felt something he couldn't quite name. Fear? Hope? Both? He didn't know, but he knew one thing for certain. His life would never be the same. The clubhouse was tense when Marcus arrived. 50 bikers were gathered in the main hall. Some were sitting, some were standing, but all of them were watching Marcus with hard eyes. Brick Henderson was standing at the front of the room. He was big, 6 feet 5 inches, 280 pounds of muscle, and bad attitude. He'd been vice president under Marcus for 3 years, but everyone knew he wanted more. Marcus, glad you could join us. What's this about, Brick? This is about what happened tonight, about how you handled your brother. I handled it. Did you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you let a man who threatened to kill your daughter walk away breathing. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. He didn't walk away. He's in custody. He's going to prison. Prison, Brick spat on the floor. Prison is for people who steal cars and sell drugs. Your brother was going to murder an 8-year-old girl, our president's daughter, and you handed him over to the cops like some kind of citizen. What would you have had me do? What any real president would do, put a bullet in his head. Show the world what happens when someone threatens the club. Emma was right there, Brick. You wanted me to execute a man in front of my daughter? I wanted you to be strong. Instead, you were weak. And weakness is something this club can't afford. Marcus's jaw tightened. Is that a challenge? The room went dead silent. Brick smiled. Maybe it is. Then say it clearly. No games. Brick stepped forward. I'm challenging your leadership. Right here, right now. By our laws, any brother can call for a vote when the president shows weakness. And letting Kevin Walsh live? That's the weakest thing I've ever seen you do. The brothers shifted uneasily. Some looked angry. Some looked scared. Some looked like they agreed with Brick. Marcus scanned the room. He'd led this chapter for 12 years. He'd built it from a struggling group of 30 into one of the most powerful chapters on the East Coast. He'd protected these men and their families, negotiated peace with rival clubs, kept the heat off when things got hot. And now they were questioning him, because he'd chosen mercy over murder. Fine, Marcus said. You want to vote? Let's have a vote. But first, I want to say something. Brick crossed his arms. Make it quick. My brother tried to kill my daughter. He's a rat, a traitor, and a coward. And yes, if I'd wanted to, I could have put a bullet in his head and nobody would have blamed me. He paused. But I didn't. You know why? Because there was an 11-year-old kid standing 3 feet away. A kid who had spent 2 days tracking Kevin through the darkness. A kid who kept my daughter alive with smuggled food and water. A kid who lit signal fires to bring us there. His voice hardened. That kid is watching us. That kid is learning from us. And what was I supposed to teach him? That the Hell's Angels solve their problems with murder? That justice means a bullet in the back of the head? He looked around the room. We're not a gang, we're a brotherhood. And brotherhood means being strong enough to show mercy when mercy is deserved. Kevin is going to spend the rest of his life in a cage. He's going to wake up every morning knowing that he failed, that his own brother caught him, that he'll never be free again. Marcus stepped toward Brick. That's not weakness, that's power. The power to decide who lives and who dies, and choosing to let someone live. That's the kind of power that makes people respect us, that makes people fear us. Not because we're killers, but because we're something worse. He was inches from Brick's face now. We're men who keep our word. We're men who protect the innocent. We're men who show the world that strength and honor aren't opposites. He turned to face the room. So go ahead, vote. But know this, if you choose Brick, you're choosing to be what the world already thinks we are. Thugs, criminals, animals. His voice dropped to a growl. And if you choose me, you're choosing to be something more, something better, something that even an 11-year-old kid from a broken trailer can look up to and say, those are the good guys. Silence. Then slowly, Razor stood up. I'm with Marcus. Another brother stood. Me too. Then another, and another. One by one, the men rose to their feet, 50 brothers standing in solidarity with their president. Brick looked around, his face darkening. This isn't over, he muttered. Yes, it is. Marcus stepped back. You challenged, they voted. It's done. Brick held his gaze for a long moment. Then he turned and walked out of the clubhouse, slamming the door behind him. The tension broke like a fever. Brothers were clapping Marcus on the back, shaking his hand, telling him they'd never doubted him. But Marcus wasn't listening. He was thinking about Ethan, about what he'd said, that the kid was watching, learning, figuring out what kind of men the Hell's Angels were. And he was thinking about the promise he'd made, to take care of Ethan, to give him a future, to be the family that the world had never given him, starting tomorrow. Marcus walked back to his bike, started the engine, and headed back to the hospital. He had a lot of work to do. Ethan was asleep when Marcus returned. The boy was curled up in a chair beside his mother's bed, a hospital blanket pulled over his thin shoulders. Even in sleep, his face looked worried, like he was running calculations, trying to figure out the next problem, the next crisis. Marcus watched him for a moment. 11 years old, 73 pounds, a lifetime of poverty and neglect, and fighting for survival. And still, somehow, this kid had found the courage to do what most adults never would. "He's been out for about 2 hours," Razor said quietly. "Finally crashed. Kid was running on empty. Let him sleep, we'll talk in the morning." "What happened at the clubhouse?" "Brick made his move. It didn't work." "And the brothers?" "They stood with me." Marcus looked at Ethan. "Every single one." Razor nodded slowly. "Good. That's good. It's just the beginning, though. Brick's going to try again. He always does." "You want me to handle it?" "No. I want you to stay here. Tomorrow, he would start building a new life for Ethan Carter. A life the kid deserved. A life that would prove to the world that heroes come from the most unexpected places, and that even the smallest, poorest, most invisible person can change everything. Morning light crept through the hospital window, and Ethan woke to the sound of his mother crying. Not sad tears, not pain, something different. He sat up quickly, heart pounding, and saw Sarah holding a piece of paper. Her hands were shaking. Marcus stood at the foot of her bed, arms crossed, watching her reaction. "Mom, what's wrong? What happened?" Sarah looked at him with tears streaming down her face. "Ethan, baby, this man, do you know what he's done?" "What? What did he do?" She handed him the paper. It was a letter, official looking, with a law firm's letterhead at the top. Ethan's eyes scanned the words, but they didn't make sense. Property deed transfer, 247 Maple Street, full ownership, Sarah and Ethan Carter. "I don't understand." "It's a house," Sarah's voice cracked. "He's giving us a house, a real house, with our names on it." Ethan looked at Marcus. "You can't do this." "Already done." "But this is too much. A house? That's crazy. We can't." "You can and you will." Marcus walked around to stand beside Ethan. "That house has been sitting empty for 2 years. Belonged to a brother who passed away. He had no family, so it went to the club. We've been looking for the right people to give it to. But, Ethan," Marcus knelt down so they were eye level. "Do you remember what you told me last night? About being invisible? About nobody caring whether you lived or died?" Ethan nodded slowly. "That ends today. From now on, you have a home. A real home. With a roof that doesn't leak and heat that doesn't get shut off. You have people who care about you, not because they have to, but because they want to." He put a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You're not invisible anymore. You never will be again." Ethan stared at the paper in his hands. A house. Their own house. No more landlords threatening eviction. No more counting coins to pay rent. No more lying awake at night wondering if they'd have a place to sleep next month. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Just accept it." "Why? Why are you doing all this? The hospital bills, the house, everything. It's too much. Nobody does this for a stranger." "You're not a stranger. You're the boy who saved my daughter." Marcus stood. "And around here, that makes you family." Sarah reached for Ethan's hand. "Baby, it's okay. We can accept this. We can let people help us." "But I'm supposed to take care of you." "You have been taking care of me. For years. You've been the man of this family since you were 7 years old." Her voice broke. "Let me take care of you now. Please. Let me be your mother again." Ethan felt something crack inside him, something that had been holding together for years by sheer force of will. He started to cry. Not the silent tears he'd shed in the basement of Building 7. Not the controlled emotion he'd shown when he thought Emma might die. These were the sobs of a child who had been carrying too much for too long. Sarah pulled him into her arms and held him while he cried. "It's okay, baby. It's okay, I've got you. I've got you." Marcus stepped back and watched them. A mother and son, reunited in a way they hadn't been in years. He thought about his own daughter, about how close he'd come to losing her, and he made a silent promise. He would never let Ethan Carter feel alone again. The news of the house spread quickly through the hospital. Nurses who had been treating Sarah stopped by to congratulate them. Doctors who had heard about Ethan's heroics shook his hand and told him he was an inspiration. Even the hospital administrator came by to offer the family anything they needed. But Ethan barely noticed. He was too busy processing what was happening. A house, a family, a future. 3 things he had never allowed himself to hope for. "There's more," Marcus said, returning to the room with a folder of papers. "We need to talk about your education." "My education? You're 11. You should be in 6th grade. But according to your school records, you've missed more than 60 days this year." Ethan's face flushed. "I had to work. Mom was sick. Someone had to." "I'm not criticizing you. I'm telling you it's going to change." Marcus opened the folder. "There's a private school in Ridgewood, Westfield Academy, best education in the county, small classes, individual attention. They've agreed to accept you on a full scholarship." "A private school? I can't go to a private school. I don't have the right clothes. I don't know how to act around rich kids. I'll make a fool of myself." "You tracked a kidnapper for 2 days and saved an 8-year-old girl's life. I think you can handle homework." "That's different." "How?" Ethan didn't have an answer. "The scholarship covers everything," Marcus continued. "Tuition, books, uniforms, supplies. You just have to show up and do the work. And if I fail, you won't fail." "You don't know that." "Yeah, I do." Marcus closed the folder. "You know how I know? Because you're the smartest, most resourceful kid I've ever met. You figured out how to survive in that factory for 2 days with nothing but your brain and your determination. School is going to be easy compared to that." Ethan looked at his mother. "Mom?" Sarah's eyes were shining. "Baby, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. Everything I ever wanted for you, a good education, a chance at a real future, it's right here. But what about you? I can't leave you alone all day while I'm at some fancy school." "I'm not going to be alone. Marcus has arranged for a nurse to check on me every day until I'm fully recovered. And after that," she looked at Marcus, "tell him." Marcus pulled out another piece of paper. "There's a job waiting for you when you're ready. Bookkeeper at one of our legitimate businesses. Light work, good pay, flexible hours." "A job? For me?" "For your mother." Sarah laughed through her tears. "Can you believe it? A real job, with benefits, like a normal person." Ethan's head was spinning. A house, a school, a job for his mother. In the space of 24 hours, their entire life had been transformed. "This doesn't feel real," he said quietly. "It's real," Marcus assured him. "Every bit of it." "Why? Why would you do all this for us?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he sat down on the edge of Sarah's bed. "Let me tell you something about the Hells Angels, something most people don't understand." Ethan listened. "The world thinks we're criminals, thugs, the bad guys in leather jackets who ride too loud and break too many rules. And yeah, some of that's true. We're not saints. We've done things that would shock you." He paused. "But we're also a family, a brotherhood. We take care of our own. When a brother loses his job, we find him work. When a brother's wife gets sick, we pay the bills. When a brother dies, we make sure his family never wants for anything." His voice hardened. "And when someone saves one of our children, when someone risks their life to protect what we love most, we don't just say thank you and walk away. We bring them into the family. We protect them the way they protected us." He looked at Ethan. "You saved Emma. You didn't have to. You could have walked away and nobody would have blamed you. But you didn't. You stayed. You fought. You kept your promise." Marcus stood. "That's the kind of person we want in our family. The kind of person who does the right thing even when it costs them everything. The kind of person who keeps their word no matter what." He extended his hand to Ethan. "So welcome to the family, kid. You've earned it." Ethan stared at the hand for a long moment. Then he took it. Emma came to visit again that afternoon, And this time she wasn't alone. Christina Walsh was with her, along with 3 other women Ethan didn't recognize. They were carrying bags, shopping bags from the look of them, and they were all smiling. "What's going on?" Ethan asked warily. "We're going shopping," Emma announced. "Mom said you need new clothes for school, and she said I could help pick them out." "Shopping? I don't need—" "Yes, you do," Christina interrupted gently. "Ethan, I've seen what you were wearing when you came into this hospital. Those clothes were 2 sizes too big and held together with hope. They were fine. They were not fine, and neither were your shoes." She held up one of the bags. "We've got everything you need. Shirts, pants, jackets, shoes, the works." Ethan's face reddened. "Mrs. Walsh, I can't let you buy me clothes. That's too much. First of all, call me Christina. Second of all, you can and you will." She sat down beside him. "Ethan, do you know what it was like for me these past 3 days? Not knowing where my daughter was? Not knowing if she was alive or dead?" Her voice wavered. "Every hour was agony. Every minute felt like a year. I kept thinking about all the things I should have said to her, all the moments I took for granted, all the times I was too busy or too tired to just be with her." She took his hand. "And then I found out that while I was losing my mind with worry, a little boy was in that factory keeping her safe, keeping her fed, keeping her hopeful." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You gave me back my daughter, Ethan. You gave me back my whole world. A few bags of clothes? That's nothing. That's less than nothing compared to what you gave me." Ethan didn't know what to say, so he said the only thing he could think of. "Thank you." Christina pulled him into a hug. "No, sweetheart, thank you." The next few hours were unlike anything Ethan had ever experienced. The women took over his mother's hospital room, turning it into a makeshift fitting room. They had Ethan try on outfit after outfit, dress shirts and khakis for school, jeans and t-shirts for weekends, a leather jacket that made Emma squeal with delight. "You look like one of Dad's brothers," she said. "I look ridiculous." "You look cool. There's a difference." Sarah watched from her bed, a smile on her face that Ethan hadn't seen in years. "My little man," she kept saying. "My brave little man." By the time they were done, Ethan had more clothes than he'd ever owned in his life. New shoes that actually fit. A backpack for school that wasn't held together with duct tape. He felt like a different person. "There's one more thing," Christina said, reaching into the last bag. Emma picked this out herself. She pulled out a small box. Inside was a watch, silver, with a simple face and a leather band. "It's not expensive," Emma said quickly. "I saved up my allowance. I wanted to give you something from me, something that's just mine." Ethan took the watch out of the box. His hands were shaking. "Emma, this is too much." "No, it's not. Every time you look at it, I want you to remember that you're not alone, that you have a friend who will never forget what you did." She helped him put it on. The leather was cool against his wrist. "Perfect," she said softly. Ethan looked at the watch, then at Emma, then at all the women who had spent their afternoon making sure he had everything he needed. "I don't know how to repay any of this." Christina shook her head. "You don't repay family, Ethan. You pay it forward. Someday you'll meet someone who needs help the way you needed help, and you'll be there for them the way we're here for you." She kissed his forehead. "That's how the world is supposed to work." 2 days later, Sarah was released from the hospital. Marcus sent a car to pick them up, not a limousine or anything fancy, just a clean SUV driven by a club member named Bones. He was a quiet man with a shaved head and a gentle manner that didn't match his intimidating appearance. "Heard a lot about you, kid," Bones said as he loaded their bags into the back. "The brothers can't stop talking about what you did." "It wasn't that big a deal," Bones laughed. "Not that big a deal? You tracked a kidnapper for 2 days and lit fires that could be seen from a mile away. That's the definition of a big deal." "I just did what anyone would do." "No, you didn't. That's the point." Bones opened the door for Sarah. Most people would have run. You stayed. That's not normal. That's exceptional. They drove through Ridgewood, past the trailer park where Ethan had spent his whole life. He looked at it through the window, the rusted trailers, the overgrown lots, the broken-down cars. That had been his world, his whole world. Now it was getting smaller in the rearview mirror. The house on Maple Street was exactly what Marcus had promised. It wasn't big, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a small kitchen and living room, but it was solid, clean. The roof didn't leak. The windows weren't cracked. The heat worked. To Ethan, it looked like a palace. "Home sweet home," Bones said, parking in the driveway. Sarah stepped out of the car and stared at the house. She didn't move, didn't speak. "Mom, are you okay?" "I never thought," her voice trailed off. "Ethan, I never thought we'd have something like this. A real home, a real chance. We do now." She turned to him with tears in her eyes. "Because of you, because of what you did. I didn't do it for this. I didn't even know any of this would happen." "I know. That's what makes it even more amazing." She pulled him close. "You saved that little girl because it was the right thing to do, and the universe rewarded you for it." "I don't believe in the universe." Sarah laughed. "Maybe you should start." They walked into the house together. Everything was ready. The furniture had been arranged. The refrigerator was stocked. There were fresh sheets on the beds and towels in the bathroom. In Ethan's room, his own room, someone had put a desk by the window. On the desk was a brand new laptop computer with a note attached. "For school, and whatever else you need, Marcus." Ethan sat down at the desk and ran his hand over the laptop surface. 3 days ago, he had been collecting cans to buy his mother medicine. Now he had a house, a room, a computer, a future. It didn't seem possible, but it was real, every bit of it. He opened the laptop and turned it on. A video started playing automatically. It was Marcus, sitting in what looked like his office at the clubhouse. "Hey kid, if you're watching this, it means you made it home. Your real home. I wanted to say a few things that I didn't get a chance to say in person." Marcus paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. "What you did for Emma, I can never repay it. Not really. The house, the school, the job for your mom, that's just stuff. It doesn't come close to matching what you gave me when you gave me back my daughter." His voice roughened. "But I want you to know something. You're not just getting help from me because I owe you. You're getting it because you deserve it. You deserve a chance that the world never gave you. You deserve to be seen, to be valued, to be loved." He leaned closer to the camera. "I know you've spent your whole life being invisible, being the kid nobody noticed, being the one who had to fight for every scrap of attention, every crumb of affection. That's over now. You're part of something bigger, a family that will never forget you, a brotherhood that will always have your back." Marcus smiled. "Welcome home, Ethan. You've earned it." The video ended. Ethan sat there for a long time, staring at the blank screen. Then, for the second time in 3 days, he let himself cry. Not tears of sorrow, tears of relief, tears of hope, tears of a boy who had finally found where he belonged. The first day of school was terrifying. Ethan stood outside Westfield Academy in his new clothes, clutching his new backpack, feeling like a fraud. The other students were streaming past him, laughing, talking, completely at ease in this world of brick buildings and manicured lawns. They belonged here. He didn't. "You look like you're about to face a firing squad." Ethan spun around. Emma was standing behind him, wearing the Westfield uniform, plaid skirt, white blouse, navy blazer. "What are you doing here?" "I go to school here, dummy." She grinned. "Did you think Marcus was going to send you to a school where you didn't know anybody?" I thought. Dad arranged everything. We're in the same grade, different homerooms, but we have lunch together." She grabbed his arm. "Come on, I'll show you around." "Emma, wait, I don't think I can do this." "Do what?" "This. Ethan gestured at the school, the students, everything. Look at these kids. They're rich. They're confident. They've never had to worry about whether they'd have dinner tonight or a place to sleep tomorrow. So I'm not like them. I don't know how to talk to them. I don't know how to act around them. I'm going to say something wrong or do something stupid, and they're going to figure out that I don't belong here. Emma studied him for a long moment. Can I tell you something? What? When I was in that room with Uncle Kevin, I was sure I was going to die. I kept thinking about all the things I'd never get to do, all the friends I'd never make, all the experiences I'd never have. Her voice softened. And then you came, this dirty, skinny kid who crawled through a ventilation shaft to bring me food. And you told me to be brave. You told me to hold on. She took his hand. Now it's my turn to tell you. Be brave, Ethan. Hold on. This is just a school. It's not a kidnapper with a gun. It's not life or death. It's just homework and lunch periods, and maybe some kids who don't understand you at first. She squeezed his fingers. But I understand you, and I'll be right here, every day, for as long as you need me. Ethan looked at her, this 8-year-old girl who had been through hell and come out the other side with her spirit intact. If she could be brave, so could he. Okay, he said. Show me around. Emma beamed. That's more like it. Come on, hero. Let's go to school. The first week was hard. Ethan struggled with the academics. He'd missed so much school that he was behind in almost every subject. Math was a foreign language. History was a blur. Even English, which he'd always been okay at, felt overwhelming. But he worked. Every night he sat at his desk with his new laptop and studied until his eyes burned. He asked for help when he needed it. He stayed after class to talk to teachers who were patient enough to explain things twice. And slowly, things started to make sense. The social side was harder. Most of the kids at Westfield came from wealthy families. They had vacation homes and trust funds and parents who drove expensive cars. They talked about things Ethan had never experienced: summer camps, family trips to Europe, the latest video game consoles. Ethan had nothing to contribute to those conversations, so he stayed quiet, listened, observed. But some of the students had heard about him, about the kidnapping, about what he'd done. "You're that kid, aren't you?" a boy named Tyler asked during lunch. "The one who saved the biker's daughter?" "Yeah, that's pretty cool." Tyler sat down across from him. "You really tracked a kidnapper for 2 days?" "Yeah." "How? Like, what did you eat? Where did you sleep?" Ethan shrugged. "I didn't eat much. Didn't sleep much either." "That's insane. I can't even go camping without my phone." Despite himself, Ethan smiled. It wasn't exactly camping. "No kidding." Tyler leaned forward. "Hey, can you teach me some of that survival stuff? Like how to start a fire without matches?" "Why would you need to know that?" "I don't know. It just seems cool, useful." Ethan looked at this rich kid who had probably never known a day of hardship in his life. "Sure," he said. "I can teach you." Maybe belonging wasn't about having the same experiences as everyone else. Maybe it was about finding common ground, one conversation at a time. 3 weeks into the school year, Marcus called a meeting. All 154 members of the Hells Angels Pennsylvania chapter gathered at the clubhouse. It was the biggest assembly since the night they'd rescued Emma. Ethan was there too, sitting in the front row with Emma and Christina. He felt out of place among all the leather and tattoos, but Marcus had insisted. "Brothers," Marcus began, standing at the front of the room, "we're here tonight to recognize someone special, someone who showed us what courage really looks like." He gestured for Ethan to stand. Ethan's legs felt like jelly, but he rose to his feet. "Most of you know this kid's story by now. He saw my daughter being taken. He followed her kidnapper into the darkness. He kept her alive for 2 days when she was supposed to die." Murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd. "But here's what you might not know. This kid had nothing. No phone, no weapon, no training. He was collecting aluminum cans to buy medicine for his sick mother when he witnessed the kidnapping. Marcus paused. He could have walked away, called the cops and hoped for the best, gone home to his trailer and pretended he hadn't seen anything. Nobody would have blamed him. He was 11 years old, alone, scared. His voice hardened. But he didn't walk away. He stayed. He watched. He learned. And when the moment was right, he lit signal fires that brought us straight to that factory. Marcus pulled something from behind the podium, a leather vest, new but styled like the ones the brothers wore. Ethan Carter isn't old enough to be a member of this club. That's not what this is about. But he is old enough to be recognized for what he did, to be honored by men who understand sacrifice and courage. He walked toward Ethan, holding out the vest. This vest has a special patch. It says, "Protected." It means that wherever you go, whatever happens, the Hells Angels have your back. You're family now. Not a member, but family. And family is forever. Ethan took the vest with trembling hands. The room erupted in applause. 154 bikers on their feet, cheering for an 11-year-old boy who had done what most of them never could. "Put it on," Marcus said quietly. Ethan slipped the vest over his shoulders. It was too big, hanging loose on his thin frame. But it felt right. It felt like armor. "Welcome to the family, kid," Marcus said, shaking his hand. "You've earned it." Emma was crying. Christina was crying. Even some of the bikers were wiping their eyes. But Ethan wasn't crying. He was smiling. For the first time in his life, he knew exactly where he belonged. That night after the ceremony, Ethan sat on the porch of his new house and looked up at the stars. His mother was inside resting. Emma had gone home with her parents. The bikers had returned to their lives. But Ethan needed a moment alone. A moment to process everything that had happened. 3 weeks ago, he had been invisible. A poor kid from a broken trailer fighting for survival. Now he had a house, a family, a future, all because he'd made a choice. He thought about Emma's eyes, finding his through the van window, the silent plea, the desperate hope. He thought about his promise, "I won't leave you." And he thought about what Marcus had said, "You're not invisible anymore. You never will be again." The stars were bright tonight, brighter than they'd ever been at the trailer park. Ethan touched the vest he was still wearing, the patch that said, "Protected." He had been protecting himself his whole life, protecting his mother, protecting their small, fragile existence. Now someone was protecting him. It felt strange, unfamiliar, like wearing shoes that were the right size after years of hand-me-downs that never fit. But it also felt good. It felt like home. Ethan made a silent promise to himself, looking up at those stars. He would earn this. Every day, every hour. He would work hard. He would be brave. He would keep his promises. Not because he had to, because he wanted to. Because that was who he was now. A boy who had been invisible. A boy who had become a hero. A boy who had finally found where he belonged. The ceremony had changed something in Ethan. Not just the vest or the applause or the feeling of belonging. Something deeper. Something that had been broken inside him for years was finally starting to heal. But healing, he would learn, doesn't happen all at once. It happens in moments. Small ones. Quiet ones. The kind that sneak up on you when you're not looking. Like the moment his mother walked into his room one morning and found him at his desk, studying for a math test. "You're up early," Sarah said. "Couldn't sleep. I keep thinking about this equation and I can't figure it out." She sat down on his bed. "Ethan, can I tell you something?" "What?" "I'm proud of you," her voice cracked. "I know I don't say it enough. I know I've been so sick for so long that I haven't been the mother you deserved. But watching you these past few weeks, seeing you go to school, do your homework, make friends," she wiped her eyes. "You're becoming the person I always knew you could be." Ethan turned to face her. "I couldn't have done any of this without you, Mom. You're the reason I kept going. All those years, collecting cans, working to keep us alive, I did it because you needed me. And now? Now I do it because I want to. Because I finally have a chance to be something more than the poor kid from the trailer park. Sarah crossed the room and hugged him. You were always more than that, baby. The world just couldn't see it. They see it now. Yes, they do. 5 months after the rescue, the state of Pennsylvania held a formal ceremony at the Capitol building. Governor Linda Harrison had been following Ethan's story since the beginning. She'd watched the news coverage, read the reports, seen the interviews that Ethan had finally agreed to do, and she decided that this boy, this poor, invisible, forgotten boy, deserved to be recognized. The ceremony was held in the rotunda. 300 people attended, politicians, media, community leaders, teachers from Westfield Academy, and in the front row, a solid wall of leather, 154 Hells Angels who had come to support one of their own. Ethan stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. I'm not good at speeches, he began, so I'll just say what's true. He paused, gathering his thoughts. 6 months ago, I was nobody. I was the kid who collected cans behind the steel mill, the kid with holes in his shoes and patches on his clothes, the kid who went to school hungry because there wasn't enough food at home. He looked at the bikers in the front row. I was invisible, and I thought I would be invisible forever. His voice hardened. Then I saw something I couldn't ignore, a man taking a little girl into the darkness, and I had to make a choice. Walk away and pretend I hadn't seen anything. Or follow, watch, try to help. He met Emma's eyes. She was sitting between her parents, tears streaming down her face. I chose to follow, not because I was brave, not because I was strong, but because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't. He looked back at the crowd. Here's what I've learned since then. Being invisible isn't a curse, it's a skill. All those years of being ignored, being overlooked, being forgotten, they taught me how to move without being seen, how to watch without being noticed, how to survive when the world didn't care if I lived or died. His voice rose. But here's the thing about invisible people. We're everywhere. We're the kids in the back of the classroom who never raise their hands. We're the families in the rundown apartments who can't afford heat in winter. We're the workers who clean your offices and serve your food and never get a second glance. He pointed at the crowd. We're all around you, and we're watching, we're learning, we're waiting for someone to see us. He stepped back from the podium. I was lucky. Someone finally saw me. The Hells Angels saw me. They gave me a home, a family, a future. But most invisible people aren't that lucky. Most of them stay invisible forever. He held up the medal the governor had just presented to him, the Pennsylvania Medal of Valor, the highest civilian honor in the state. This medal doesn't belong to me. It belongs to every invisible kid who's out there right now, fighting to survive, dreaming of something better, wondering if anyone will ever notice them. He looked directly into the camera. So if you're watching this, if you're one of those invisible kids, I want you to know something. You matter. Your struggles matter. Your dreams matter. And someday, if you keep fighting, someone will see you. Someone will give you a chance. His voice broke. I promise. The rotunda erupted in applause. Standing ovation. 300 people on their feet, including every single biker in the room. Emma ran up to the podium and threw her arms around him. You did it, she whispered. You actually did it. I just told the truth. That's what made it so powerful. Governor Harrison approached the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, Ethan Carter. More applause, more cheers. Ethan stood there holding Emma's hand, wearing his medal, feeling, for the first time in his life, truly seen. The trial of Kevin Walsh began 3 weeks later. Ethan was called to testify. He sat in the witness box, facing the man who had terrorized Emma for 3 days, and told his story. every detail, every moment, every fear. The prosecutor asked him why he'd stayed, why he hadn't run for help, why he'd risked his life for a stranger. Ethan thought about it for a long moment. Because she looked at me, he finally said, through the van window, just for a second, and in that second I saw myself. What do you mean? I saw a kid who was scared, who was alone, who thought nobody was coming for her. His voice steadied. I know what that feels like. I've felt it my whole life. And I couldn't walk away knowing she would feel it too. The defense attorney tried to shake his testimony, pointed out that Ethan had been exhausted, hungry, under extreme stress, suggested that maybe his memory wasn't reliable. Ethan looked at him calmly. I remember every word he said. I remember every sound she made. I remember the exact moment he put the gun to her head and told her she was going to die. He leaned forward. Do you want me to repeat it? Because I can. Word for word. I'll never forget any of it. The defense attorney sat down. Kevin Walsh was convicted on all counts: kidnapping, aggravated assault, making terroristic threats. The judge sentenced him to 35 years in federal prison. At the sentencing, Kevin was allowed to make a statement. He looked at Marcus, his brother, the man he had betrayed, and spoke for the first time since his arrest. I was wrong, Kevin said, about everything. I thought I was owed something. I thought my pain justified what I did. I was wrong. He turned to Emma. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know you'll carry what I did to you for the rest of your life. But I'm sorry. Finally, he looked at Ethan. You should have let me die. You know that, right? When Marcus had me on the ground, when the brothers were ready to tear me apart, you could have stepped back. Let it happen. Nobody would have blamed you. Ethan met his gaze. That's not who I am. I know. Kevin's voice cracked. That's why you're a hero. And I'm just a cautionary tale. The guards led him away. Emma grabbed Ethan's hand and held it tight. It's over, she said. It's finally over. Yeah, it is. But even as he said it, Ethan knew that some things are never really over. Kevin would spend decades in prison, but the scars he'd left behind would take even longer to fade. All you could do was keep moving forward, one day at a time, one promise at a time. The months passed, then a year, then two. Ethan grew, not just physically, though he did that too, finally eating enough to put some weight on his thin frame, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. He excelled at Westfield Academy. Math, which had once seemed impossible, became his best subject. His teachers praised his work ethic, his determination, his refusal to give up even when the material was difficult. You learn differently than most kids, his math teacher told him. You need to understand why something works, not just how. Once you get the why, you're unstoppable. I've always been like that. If I don't understand something, I pick at it until I do. That's called intellectual curiosity. It's rare. Don't lose it. He made friends. Tyler, the rich kid who'd wanted to learn survival skills, became one of his closest companions. They were an odd pair, the trailer park hero and the trust fund kid, but somehow it worked. You're the most interesting person I've ever met, Tyler told him one day. Everyone else at this school is so boring. They've never had to fight for anything. You fought for everything. That's not something to admire. That's just survival. Maybe, but it made you different, better. Emma remained his closest friend. They saw each other every day at school, had dinner together every Sunday at the Walsh house, and talked on the phone almost every night. You know what I've realized? Emma said one evening, 3 years after the kidnapping. She was 11 now. Ethan was 14. What? I'm not scared anymore of anything. After what we went through, everything else seems small. That's called perspective. You've been through the worst thing that can happen, and you survived. Now you know you can handle whatever comes next. Is that how you feel? Ethan thought about it. Yeah, I guess it is. I used to be scared of everything. Scared we'd lose the trailer. Scared my mom would die. Scared I'd be invisible forever. He looked at her. Now I'm not scared of anything. Because I know that even when things are at their worst, there's always a way forward. You just have to find it. Emma smiled. We found each other. Yeah, we did. Sarah Carter's health improved steadily over the years. The pneumonia had left some damage to her lungs, but with proper care and medication, she recovered most of her strength. The job Marcus had arranged, bookkeeper for a legitimate Hells Angels business, turned out to be perfect for her. Light work, good pay, colleagues who treated her like family. I never thought I'd work in an office, she told Ethan one evening. All those years in the trailer, scraping by on minimum wage jobs and disability checks, I never imagined having a career. You deserve it, Mom. No, baby, you deserve it. Everything I have now is because of what you did. I didn't do it for this. I know, that's what makes it so special. She reached across the table and took his hand. Ethan, I want you to promise me something. What? When you grow up, when you become the man I know you're going to become, don't forget where you came from. Don't forget the trailer park. Don't forget what it feels like to be hungry and scared and invisible. Why would I forget that? Because success changes people. Comfort makes them forget. And I don't want that to happen to you. Ethan squeezed her hand. I won't forget, Mom, I promise. Good, because the world needs people who remember. People who understand what it's like to have nothing. People who can see the invisible. She smiled. You're going to change the world, Ethan. I believe that with all my heart. The 5-year anniversary of the rescue arrived on a cold November night. Marcus had organized a gathering at the clubhouse. Nothing fancy, just the brothers, their families, and the people who had been part of that incredible night. Ethan was 16 now, tall, strong, confident in a way he never could have imagined when he was that skinny kid collecting cans. He wore his protected vest over a button-down shirt, a strange combination that had become his signature look. Emma was 13. She'd grown into a thoughtful, compassionate young woman who volunteered with organizations that help kidnapping victims. She was already talking about becoming a psychologist, helping kids who had been through trauma. Can you believe it's been 5 years? She asked Ethan as they stood together in the corner of the clubhouse. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't been there that night? If you'd gone home early or collected cans somewhere else? All the time. And? Ethan was quiet for a moment. I think about how many other kids are out there right now, in situations just as bad as yours was. Kids who don't have someone watching. Kids who don't have someone to make them a promise and keep it. His voice hardened. That's why I can't just move on. That's why I can't just accept my good fortune and forget about everyone else. Because somewhere out there, right now, there's a kid who needs help, and nobody's coming for them. Emma took his hand. What are you going to do about it? I don't know yet, but I'm going to do something. I have to. Whatever it is, I'm with you. Ethan looked at her. This girl who had been through hell and come out stronger. His best friend, his family. I know you are. Marcus called for everyone's attention. Brothers and sisters, we're here tonight to remember something important. 5 years ago, a little girl was taken from us. And 5 years ago, a boy we'd never met tracked her kidnapper for 2 days and brought her home. He raised his glass. To Ethan Carter, the bravest person I've ever known. To Ethan! 154 voices echoed. Ethan felt his face flush. Even after all these years, the attention still made him uncomfortable. I want to say something, he announced. The room went quiet. 5 years ago, I was nobody. I was invisible. I had nothing except my mother and my determination to survive. He looked around at the faces watching him. Now I have everything. A home, a family, an education, a future, and I owe all of it to the people in this room. His voice strengthened. But I don't want to just take. I don't want to be someone who got lucky and forgot about everyone else. I want to give back. I want to help other kids who are where I was, invisible, forgotten, fighting to survive. He pulled a piece of paper from his pocket. That's why I'm starting a program. I'm calling it The Promise. It's going to identify invisible kids, the ones collecting cans, the ones going to school hungry, the ones taking care of sick parents, and it's going to help them. Tutoring, mentorship, resources, whatever they need. He held up the paper. Marcus has agreed to fund the startup costs. Westfield Academy has agreed to provide volunteers. And I've already identified 15 kids in Ridgewood who need help. His voice rose. We're going to find the invisible ones. We're going to see them, and we're going to make them a promise. The same promise I made to Emma 5 years ago. He looked at Emma. We won't leave them, no matter what. The room erupted in cheers. Emma was crying. Sarah was crying. Even some of the hardened bikers were wiping their eyes. Marcus crossed the room and put his hand on Ethan's shoulder. I knew you were special the first time I met you, he said quietly, but I didn't know how special. You're going to change a lot of lives, kid. I'm just doing what you taught me, paying it forward. No, you're doing what you taught us, Marcus smiled. That the smallest, poorest, most invisible person can change everything. All they need is a chance. Ethan thought about his grandmother's words. Don't be one of those people who look away. He hadn't looked away, and now neither would anyone else. The night ended with a ride. 154 motorcycles roaring through the streets of Ridgewood, with Ethan on the back of Marcus's bike, wearing his vest, feeling the wind on his face. They rode past the old steel mill, the place where everything had changed, past the trailer park where Ethan had grown up, past Westfield Academy, where he was becoming someone new. And finally, they rode to the factory complex where Emma had been held. They didn't go inside. They didn't need to. They just stopped their bikes and looked at the building where hope had happened. This is where you became who you are, Marcus said quietly. This is where a scared 11-year-old boy made a promise and kept it. Ethan nodded slowly. I was so afraid that night. I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know if I was strong enough. But you did it anyway. Yeah, I did. Marcus put a hand on his shoulder. That's courage, Ethan. Not the absence of fear. The presence of fear and doing the right thing anyway. Ethan looked at the factory one last time. Then he turned away. The past was behind him. The future was ahead. And he had promises to keep. Today, Ethan Carter is 21 years old. He's a junior at Penn State, studying social work with a minor in psychology. He still runs the Promise program, which has now helped over 200 invisible kids find their way to better lives. He still has dinner with the Walsh family every Sunday. He still wears his protected vest when he rides with the club. He still talks to Emma almost every day. Sarah Carter is healthy and happy. She remarried 3 years ago. A good man, a former brother who treats her like a queen. Ethan walked her down the aisle at the wedding. Emma Walsh is 18 now, a freshman at the same university as Ethan. She's studying to become a child psychologist, just like she always planned. She volunteers with survivors of kidnapping and speaks at schools about resilience and hope. Every November 8th, the anniversary of the worst night of her life and the best, she and Ethan return to Ridgewood. They don't go to the factory. They don't need to revisit that darkness. Instead, they go to the roof of Building 6, where Ethan lit his signal fires. They sit together and watch the sun come up. They don't talk much. They don't need to. The promise was kept. That's all that matters. This story isn't really about bikers or bravery or kidnappings. It's about seeing. It's about what happens when we actually look at the people around us. The poor kids, the struggling families, the invisible ones who slip through the cracks. Ethan Carter was invisible. Nobody saw him. Nobody expected anything from him. He was just the poor kid from the trailer park collecting cans to survive. But when it mattered, he saw. He saw a little girl in a pink nightgown, terrified and alone. He saw an opportunity to make a difference. He saw that walking away would be easy, but staying would be right, and he chose to stay. The Hell's Angels saw him too. They saw past his ragged clothes and dirt-streaked face. They saw a boy with more courage and character than most adults ever develop. They saw someone worth protecting, worth investing in, worth calling family. That's the lesson. Pay attention. Look at the people around you, not just the ones who are easy to see, the successful, the confident, the loud. Look at the quiet ones, the invisible ones, the ones who are struggling in silence. Because somewhere out there, right now, there's an Ethan Carter collecting cans behind an abandoned factory, dreaming of a better life but never expecting one. And somewhere out there, there's an Emma Walsh who needs someone to see her, to stay with her, to promise they won't leave. Be that person. Be the one who sees. Be the one who stays. Be the one who keeps promises even when breaking them would be easier. You don't need a motorcycle or a medal or 72 hours in the darkness to make a difference. You just need to care enough to pay attention. Ethan was 11. He had nothing. He had no one. And he saved a life. If he can do it, so can you. So pay attention. Listen when someone hesitates. Ask the questions everyone else is too polite to ask. Care enough to intervene even when your voice shakes. Because somewhere out there, right now, there's a kid who needs someone to make the choice Ethan made. To stay instead of run. To promise instead of turn away. To be brave when being brave is the only thing that matters. Be that person. And if you already are, if you're a teacher who notices, a neighbor who asks, a stranger who helps, thank you. Keep going. Keep caring. Keep being the person who stays. The world needs more Ethans, more Emmas, more Marcuses, more people who understand that protection isn't about size or strength. It's about showing up. It's about keeping promises. It's about refusing to let someone face darkness alone. That's the story, that's the lesson, and that's the promise. Subscribe to this channel for more stories that prove heroes come in unexpected forms. Comment below and tell me, who was your protector? Who taught you to keep promises? And who are you protecting now? Because everyone needs someone who won't leave. Everyone deserves their own Ethan. And if you're out there, invisible and struggling, collecting cans and dreaming of something better, don't give up. Your moment is coming. Someone will see you. And when they do, everything changes.